Okay, what if I told you that your nonprofit could get the exact same powerful, secure website hosting that giants like Netflix and NASA use, but for free? I know it totally sounds like there's a catch, but honestly, for a lot of nonprofits using Drupal, it is a reality. And it's all thanks to a program from Amazon Web Services, AWS. So let's dive in and break down exactly how this whole thing works.
I mean, seriously, just take a second and think about that. What could your organization actually do with an extra few $1,000s in the budget every year? Would it mean more outreach, a whole new program? This isn't some daydream, you guys. It's a very, very real possibility we're about to walk through. So here it is, $5,000. That's the key. It comes from something called the AWS Nonprofit Credit Program. Most nonprofits that qualify can get up to $5,000 in AWS credits every single year. You just apply through a partner, TechSoup, and boom, you've suddenly got this huge budget for some seriously top-tier cloud infrastructure. But, and yeah, this is a pretty big but, getting those credits, that's actually the easy part. Figuring out how to use them, well, that's where things get a little tricky.
Right, and that brings us right to what I like to call the AWS credit dilemma. It's this super frustrating roadblock that honestly stops so many amazing nonprofits right in their tracks. So let's take a look at why this even happens in the first place.
So picture this. You've done all the work. You sent in the application, and you got approved. Awesome! The credits are sitting right there in your nonprofit's very own AWS account just waiting to be spent. It's a great feeling. Okay, so you've got the credits. Logically, you think, great, I'll just use these with my Drupal host, right? Well, here's the catch. The big, popular hosts, they can't actually accept them. And it's not like they don't want to. The problem is, their platforms run on their own gigantic AWS accounts, not on yours. So what happens? You end up paying them out of pocket. And those beautiful free credits, they just sit there, completely unused.
And that, right there, is the heart of the whole dilemma. If you want to spend those free credits, all the tech stuff, we're talking servers, databases, the whole shebang, it has to be running inside the AWS account that your nonprofit actually owns and controls.
So yeah, what are your options? This is usually the point where a lot of organizations just freeze up. It feels like you have to suddenly become a cloud engineering genius just to use what is basically a donation. But here's the good news, you really don't. There are a few very clear paths you can take.
So, let's talk about those paths. Broadly speaking, you've got three main choices. I call them the hard way, the costly way, and, you guessed it, the smart way. Let's dig into what each of these really looks like for a nonprofit like yours.
Okay, so we're going to break down exactly what each of these paths entails, starting with the one that, well, requires the most heavy lifting. All right, path number 1, the hard way. This is the total do-it-yourself route. It means your team, or let's be real, probably just you, is responsible for setting up every single server, every database, all the network stuff, all by hand inside your AWS account. You get total control, which sounds good, but unless you happen to have a team of cloud experts on staff, it's a lot. And this is the hidden trap of the hard way. Look at this. The actual cost of the servers on AWS, it's pretty cheap, maybe $300 a month. Your credits can easily cover that, no problem. But what about the person you need to hire to actually build and maintain that system? The salary for a DevOps engineer is going to run you over $7,000 a month. All of a sudden, free hosting isn't looking so free anymore, is it?
Okay, next up is path number 2, the costly way. Now, this is definitely the path of least resistance. You basically decide the credits are just too much of a headache, you stick with a great traditional host that you already know, and you just pay the regular fees. It's simple, it absolutely works, but you are literally leaving that $5,000 from AWS just sitting on the table.
And that brings us to path number 3, the smart way. This is where you use a new kind of automation platform. It's designed to do all that heavy lifting for you. But, and this is the most important part, it does it all inside your own AWS account. This is the key that unlocks the full value of those credits.
You know, the best way I've heard this described is right here. Think of these platforms as having a robot DevOps engineer. It's this automated expert that goes in and sets up everything perfectly inside your AWS account, following all the best practices so you don't have to. It turns what could be a months-long, super technical project into something you can do with just a few clicks. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, let's just lay it all out, side by side. Look at this. The manual way. Does it use your credits? Yes. Do you need a DevOps team? Oh yeah, a full-time one, making your real cost over $85,000 a year. Ouch. Okay, the traditional way. Can't use the credits,
but you don't need a DevOps team. And then you've got the smart way. It uses your credits, you don't need a full-time expert, and with those credits, your true annual cost can be basically zero. I mean, when you see it laid out like this, the choice becomes pretty darn clear.
All right, so it's pretty obvious the smart way is the way to go. But what does that actually look like for your specific nonprofit? Let's get into the details, because the best approach really depends on the size of your organization and the tech resources you have on your team.
So first up, let's talk about small nonprofits. You know the drill. Probably a tight budget, and maybe just 1 or 2 people on the team who are even a little bit tech-savvy.
If that sounds like you, the recommendation is really simple. Use a free automation platform. Seriously. It handles all that complicated server setup stuff for you. The huge benefit here is that it lets you use every single penny of your AWS credits. And look at that bottom line. Your effective hosting cost drops to pretty much zero. For a small organization, this is an absolute game changer.
Okay, now what about mid-size nonprofits? Maybe you've got a couple of developers on staff, which is great, but nobody who really specializes in the nitty-gritty of cloud infrastructure.
So for a team like this, the best bet is to use that same free automation platform, but then also budget a little for some on-demand professional support. Here's why that's so smart. It lets your developers focus on what they do best, building awesome features for your website, instead of getting bogged down wrestling with server configs. Your AWS credits cover all the hosting costs, so you only have to pay for expert help on the rare occasion you actually need it.
And finally, what about the big guys, the large enterprise-level nonprofits? We're talking about organizations where the website is absolutely mission-critical and you have really strict compliance rules to follow, things like HIPAA for healthcare data or FedRAMP if you work with the government.
For organizations at this level, the best path is usually a premium enterprise plan. These services give you that 24/7, round-the-clock expert support to handle all the complex compliance stuff for you, and they guarantee your site's uptime and security. And here's the kicker. Because these platforms still run in your AWS account, your credits still cover all the underlying server costs. It makes a truly premium service way more affordable than it would be otherwise.
All right, we've gone through a ton of information, so let's boil this all down to the key things you really need to remember.
First things first, always apply for the AWS Nonprofit credits. It's basically free money. Number 2, to actually get the most out of those credits, you've got to use a platform that runs in your own account. Third, and this is huge, choose your path based on your team's actual capacity, not just the sticker price. Remember that hidden cost of staff time can be a killer. And if you get all this right, you can seriously reduce your hosting costs by over 90%.
And that really brings us right back to where we started, because at the end of the day, this was never really about the technology, was it? It's about freeing up resources to focus on what matters. So the question is, what could your nonprofit do with an extra $5 grand to put towards your mission? That's the real bottom line.